up here on the screen, and I'm going to read it to you. So you just settle back and pretend like you're at school, or that your mom is reading to you or something like that, because we are going to hear this story. This story is called Stone Soup, and the version that I chose is the classic one that won some sort of award. So, Anne, I am going to need you to take us through the slides for this book. Three soldiers trudged down a road in a strange country. They were on their way home from the wars. Besides being tired, they were hungry. In fact, they had eaten nothing for 2 days. "How I would like a good dinner tonight," said the first. "And a bed to sleep in," said the second. "But all that is impossible," said the third. "We must march on." On they marched. Suddenly, ahead of them, they saw the lights of a village. "Maybe we'll find a bite to eat there," said the first. "And a loft to sleep in," said the second. "No harm in asking," said the third. Now the peasants of that place feared strangers. When they heard that their soldiers were coming down the road, they talked among themselves. I'm going to sit closer to this text. "Here come 3 soldiers. Soldiers are always hungry, but we have little enough for ourselves." And they hurried to hide their food. They pushed sacks of barley under the hay in the lofts. They lowered buckets of milk down the wells. They spread old quilts over the carrot bins. They hid their cabbages and potatoes under the beds. They hung their meat in the cellars. They hid all they had to eat. Then they waited. The soldiers stopped first at the house of Paul and Francois. "Good evening to you," they said. "Could you spare a bit of food for 3 hungry soldiers?" "We have had no food for ourselves for 3 days," said Paul. Francois made a sad face. "It has been a poor harvest." The 3 soldiers went on to the house of Albert and Louise. "Could you spare a bit of food and have you some corner where we could sleep for the night?" "Oh, no," said Albert. "We gave all we could spare to soldiers who came before you." "Our beds are full," said Louise. At Vincent and Marie's, the answer was the same. It had been a poor harvest, and all the grain must be kept for seed. So it went all through the village. Not a peasant had any food to give away. They all had good reasons. One family had used the grain for feed. Another had an old sick father to care for. All had too many mouths to fill. The villagers stood in the street and sighed. They looked as hungry as they could. The 3 soldiers talked together. Then the first soldier called out, "Good people!" The peasants drew near. "We are 3 hungry soldiers in a strange land. We have asked you for food, and you have no food. Well then, we'll all have to make stone soup." The peasants stared. Stone soup? That would be something to know about. Have you ever heard of stone soup? "First, we'll need a large iron pot," the soldiers said. The peasants brought the largest pot they could find. How else to cook enough? "That's none too large," said the soldiers, "but it will do. And now water to fill it and a fire to heat it." It took many buckets of water to fill the pot. A fire was built on the village square, and the pot was set to boil. And now, if you please, 3 round, smooth stones. Those were easy to find. The peasants' eyes grew round as they watched the soldiers drop the stones into the pot. Any soup needs salt and pepper, said the soldiers as they began to stir. Children ran to fetch salt and pepper. Stones like these generally make good soup, but oh, if there were carrots, it would be much better. Why, I think I have a carrot or two, said Francois, and off she ran. She came back with her apron full of carrots from the bin beneath the red quilt. A good stone soup should have cabbage, said the soldiers as they sliced the carrots into the pot, but no use asking for what you don't have. I think I could find a cabbage somewhere, said Marie, and she hurried home. Back she came with 3 cabbages from the cupboard under the bed. If we only had a bit of beef and a few potatoes, this soup would be good enough for a rich man's table. The peasants thought that over. They remembered their potatoes and the sides of beef hanging in the cellars. They ran to fetch them. A rich man's soup, and all from a few stones. It seemed like magic. Ah, sighed the soldiers as they stirred in the beef and potatoes. If we only had a little barley and a cup of milk, this soup would be fit for the king himself. Indeed, he asked for just such a soup when last he dined with us. The peasants looked at each other. The soldiers had entertained the king. Well, but no use asking for what you don't have, the soldiers sighed. The peasants brought their barley from the lofts. They brought their milk from the wells. The soldiers stirred the barley and milk into the steaming broth while the peasants stared. At last, the soup was ready. All of you shall taste, the soldiers said, but first a table must be set. Great tables were placed in the square, and all around were lighted torches. Such a soup, how good it smelled, truly fit for a king. But then the peasants asked themselves, would not such a soup require bread and a roast and cider? Soon a banquet was spread and everyone sat down to eat. Never had there been such a feast. Never had the peasants tasted such soup. And fancy, made from stones. Was it really made from stones? They ate and drank and ate and drank, and after that, they danced. Notice they like dancing too. They danced and sang far into the night. At last, they retired. Then the 3 soldiers asked, is there not a loft where we could sleep? Let 3 such wise and splendid gentlemen sleep in a loft? Indeed, they must have the best beds in the village. So the first soldier slept in the priest's house. The second soldier slept in the baker's house. And the third soldier slept in the mayor's house. In the morning, the whole village gathered in the square to give them a send-off. Many thanks for what you have taught us, the peasants said to the soldiers. We shall never go hungry now that we know how to make soup from stones. Oh, it's all in knowing how, said the soldiers, and off they went down the road. The end. And you can turn off the screen share. I asked this before, but I'm going to ask it again. Was that soup really made from stones? What's that? They could, who can eat stones, right? They all said that they did not have any food. Or any room for the soldiers to sleep in, but they all had food and they found 3 good beds for the soldiers, didn't they? What do you think the moral of the story is? Miracle? I kind of lost you in the middle of that sentence. Can you say that again? No, I'm not saying that you did a bad job. I'm just saying that I had a hard time understanding what you said. You forgot. Do you know what the moral of the story is, Zachariah? Okay, so both kids started out by saying that the people lied, which is absolutely true. Zachariah said that, and maybe Miracle said this too, I just got lost in the middle of her explanation, that together they all ended up having enough to make the soup, right? Could any one of them, do you think, kids, have gotten everything together? If just one person or one family, could they have gotten all that together and made the feast that they had? No, it took all of them together, didn't it? It took all of them together, and when it came down to it, they had more than enough, right? There's a reason I'm dressing down. Reason number one is I've put on a few pounds in 2022 and my clergy shirts don't fit me anymore. Reason number two is that we have these cool stewardship t-shirts proclaiming that in God and with one another, we have more than enough. And I think that is true not just for those peasants in that village. That is true and always has been right here at St. John of the Cross. If I said to Jerry McCarthy, Jerry, starting tomorrow, you have to do everything. Including mowing the lawn and putting together the bulletins and cleaning the church and running the tech and putting together the slide decks and volunteering at the Bristol Food Pantry because they depend on us, you know, and doing the music. I know that you would love to do the music, wouldn't you, Jerry? I know you do. Jerry says he could, but he couldn't. And neither could Terry. Terry tries to do everything, but she can't. And neither could Beverly or Bob or Terry. No one of us, including me, can do all the things, right? No one of us can do all the things. But if we all come together and do the things that we are able, and even better, the things that we enjoy, that God gave us a gift for, we have more than enough. One of the interesting things that has happened in 2022, besides my sudden surge in weight, has been the number of the key leaders in this congregation that I especially have come to depend upon, not always being able to do the things that they once did. How many times have I stood up there when Deb and Bill were unable to come to church because Deb was so sick and said, I need someone to bring up the gifts? And we recently had to make this announcement about the weeding, because guess who usually does the weeding? Deb. Cindy Keck, whose cancer has been giving her a run for her money. Talk about a woman who tries to do it all, who would try to prepare the whole pot of soup all by herself all the time, right? Is she up there? Yes, she is. Cindy is the woman who tries to prepare the whole pot of soup all by herself all the time. But what we're learning is that Cindy can do what Cindy can do, and we can ask others to step up to do some of the things, right? Bob Berkey, whose heart stopped twice. Man, you have never seen such an inwardly panicked priest as I was when I thought, what if he dies? Because I got to tell you, the Wednesday that Larry and I sat in the hospital, the day that Bob went in, that's what the doctor prepared us for. Who's going to take care of the stained glass windows and all the things if Bob dies? Gwen Alexander passing away at the beginning of this year. There has been so much where we've realized how much some people do. And it has been very easy for me as a priest to live in a place of scarcity. Oh, Skip and Laura leaving. There's another one. It's been very easy for me to live in a place of scarcity. But you know what? Skip moved to Virginia and Dwayne's sitting over there playing guitar. Bob went into the hospital. Steve Streeter stepped up to the plate and fixed some doors for us when they needed fixing. Deb Walters stopped being able to bring up the gifts all the time. Walt Johnson isn't here today, but Walton, who else was it? Someone helped with that. What's that? Scott Baker. Scott and Walt stepped up to the plate. Cindy said, I can't do the bazaar. Joy Wakefield said, I can. That's stone soup, folks, right? That is proof that we are more than enough. This stole actually represents that for me as well, because this stole was made for me when I was working as chaplain at diocesan camp. I tell you what is amazing about diocesan camp. This diocese has never purchased a camp program. They sell these, you know. They sell VBSs and summer camp programs. And an awful lot of churches get on, I know, because I see the Facebook posts where every church across the United States is doing the same vacation Bible school because they've all purchased whatever curriculum was offered that year. And camps do this too. There are curriculums to purchase, or you can go to a camp that has provided their own curriculum. And this diocese has said, we don't do that. We home grow our camp curriculum. We do what fits us and our kids and the people who volunteer. And somehow every year, our tiny, under-resourced diocese pulls off camp like you wouldn't believe. We have the young adults who can stay up half the night and still function in the morning in cabins with kids. We have priests serving as chaplains, priests and deacons serving as chaplains. We have people working the art room. We have people leading sports and recreation. We have people teaching classes. Our kids every year learn a bit of American Sign Language. They learn how to write limericks They learn how to juggle. And no one person could do all of that. But put together the gifts of this diocese, and every year there is more than enough. So, as I said last Sunday, this is our intentional season of stewardship, and you should all have picked up on your way in an envelope. If you did not, make sure you grab one on the way out, and that includes you, Rogers family. We've got one for you as well. And when you open it up, you'll find a letter written by me. And then you will find a wisdom and works survey. Usually during stewardship season, we talk about time, talent, and treasure. This year, we're talking about wealth, works, and wisdom. I want to know what wisdom you all carry, that you've all been gifted with, that I might not have known about. I want to know about the things that you do, what your talents are. You know, I had been here 6 years before I knew that Bob Berkey was a licensed electrician. How many times did we need someone to work on the electrical? And we had a licensed electrician sitting in our pews. I'm guessing there's a lot of things like that. So I'm asking you all to take this home and fill it out, because I want to know who has the carrots, who has the potatoes, who has the barley, who has the milk, who has the salt and pepper, so that we might be the best version of the body of Christ that we can be. One in which we are all using our gifts and our talents and providing our wisdom to make a fabulous bowl of soup. Notice what happened at the end of that story? They didn't just survive, right? They didn't just make the soup, they thrived. They talked and they danced and they sang. If we all give our gifts willingly and happily to God and to this parish, there will be more than enough through God and to the glory of God. Amen.